Hi everyone, and welcome to the live feed with Tony and Nathan. And I just need to say, before we start anything, please remember to subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications. And if you are watching this directly on Nathan's channel as well, in which I'm setting it to both, could you please also subscribe to Nathan also. Now, want to start with a topic which I think is relevant to all of us. That is, what sort of a shitstorm are we heading into in relation to the United States, and how are we going to manage the fact that can we ever rely on the United States to be a reliable partner? I'll put a goal up on our on the YouTube channel. You might like to just respond to that. I've already got some responses. The no's are at 86% at the moment, so I don't know what the hell that means. But primarily, no, we can't. We've got a story. We've got to talk about Venezuela. We're going to talk about the Royal Commission, and Nathan's going to give us some insights into the Victorian election, or the Victorian political stream, whatever you like to call it, is as well, because he's from Victoria. So just want to say, as a means of introduction, is that this is your conversation. This is your opportunity to have a conversation amongst yourselves and with us about the things that matter to you. And there's a number of people come on side. They're all saying hi to everybody. That's great. But this conversation is about what you can offer, ideas that you have. Nathan and I were just talking a minute ago about what it means to be on YouTube, and one of the things that we cited was that it's great to be able to hear from you. Most of you, we find, provide some intelligent conversations and ideas that we haven't thought of, and we cherish those ideas. But I want to start also by saying that the world is in a mess because of what the United States have done in Venezuela. This should be a concern to all of us as to where the world order now sits, if it exists at all. And that's the question, I guess, that I'm asking today and would like you to respond to. That the world will no longer be the same since the United States has decided to do what they have done. But we must also remember that the United States has done this before. It's not the first time that they've decided that they need to get rid of somebody they disliked. And the question I'm asking everybody is, whether you agree with it or not, would you like it to happen to us? How would you respond, and how would you feel if the United States decided they wanted to get rid of whoever our Prime Minister was, and they wanted to capture him and take him back to their country and try him for whatever charges they want to level at him? How would we feel if that happened to us? Doesn't matter whether they're good or bad. Is it really breaking someone's sovereignty and disrupting their government? That is the issue. Do they have the power to do that? Are they also powerful? Are they going to take over Greenland? Are they going to eventually choose to do something about the rest of the South African countries, such as Colombia and all those regions south of where the United States is? What is their ultimate plan? What are they planning to do, and how will the rest of the world respond? That's my intro, and what I would like us to do is to welcome my mate, my buddy Nathan, to the show. Good on you, see you, mate.
Hello, Tony. Good to see you. Happy New Year, and
yes,
hello to you
and everybody else, actually.
Yeah, and hello to your audience too. I really have appreciated the last couple of lives we did last year, and some of your audience have jumped over to my channel and are commenting on my videos and that as well. And it's a really informed bunch of people that have given me really great insights to expand my channel and ideas that I talk about. So looking forward to talking today.
Right now, can you give us your take? And Nathan and I don't necessarily have to agree on everything, and perhaps won't as we continue to have more and more of these discussions. So, what's your take on what the United States did in Venezuela and the fracturing, I guess, of the world order?
Yeah, well, first of all, just for anyone that's new or hasn't seen me before, I'll state my position just on war and international relations in general is I'm very much a hands-off, like non-interventionist, anti-war person. I know that's not always possible if you're being attacked, but I think what the US did was just morally wrong. I think it's going to we'll find out it's going to have been legally wrong. But what the way I look at it is in terms of what we've talked about and what you talk about a lot on your channel, Tony, about the right wing messaging and the things that they don't talk about or the distractions. To me, it really feels like what's happened is with Donald Trump, who the president and was in charge of this invasion. The Epstein files is a big thing that he's trying to distract from. There was another batch supposed to be released on Saturday that contained a lot more information that they delayed. Donald Trump is in really poor health, so he has been undergoing some MRIs, CT scans. He takes, you can see this brown spot on his hand every 2 weeks, so he takes injections for what a lot of doctors say is to treat dementia. He has a lot of blood clots in his feet, so he wears compression socks for that. So he's in really poor health, and he's turning 80 years old this year. And that's no comment on him as a person. It's just the fact that, Donald Trump's narcissism, he can't be seen as weak in any way. So he's needs to show that strength. And the other thing is that I think is probably the bigger distraction, and with the US having an election, their midterm election this year in November, is the domestic economics of America, the cost of living, jobs, unemployment is a disaster in the US at the moment. It was so bad that when they released the job numbers, it showed the US was losing jobs for the first quarter in a few years since COVID. He fired the head of their equivalent. We've got the ABS, the Bureau of Statistics, where they release our job numbers in Australia. The head of that in the US got fired, and now they don't even release the numbers anymore because they're that bad. Donald Trump, even Donald Trump fans would admit that if the numbers were good, Donald Trump would be out there releasing them, talking about them, and they're not even releasing them because they're so bad. So basically, in November, they're going to have an election, and if it's on the cost of living and the economy, the Republicans are going to lose, and they're going to lose badly. So they need to try and change the messaging, and I think that's a big part. Aside from the oil, which they're admitting they're trying to take from Venezuela, I think it's a big right-wing distraction, and eyes have opened a lot by you, Tony, on that. I've always been on top of that before watching your channel, but your unpacking of the right-wing messaging is really helping me open my eyes to the reality of what they're doing.
Well, thank you. I guess one of the things too that we need to note is that the United States has been set up under Trump as being an isolationist administration. So, and one of the things that he ran on, Nathan specifically, was about not entering into any other forever wars. And it seems to me that right at this particular point in time, that's his goal. He wants to enter into wars with countries that he can take over. And one of the questions I think that we need to start to analyze and to consider is what is in this for Donald Trump? Now, Donald Trump isn't a man who's necessarily interested in what the local shopkeeper needs or requires, or how he needs to raise his family, or what's important to them in terms of groceries and affordability. Donald Trump's interested in what's in it for Donald Trump. So I want to know your take on whether you believe that Donald Trump is endeavoring to do whatever he does in Venezuela because of the oil and his obligation to meet some commitments that is made to the oligarchs, the oil oligarchs in particular, in the United States. Have you got any views on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, in terms of the economics of what they're doing around that, that would be their reason. And there was actually something, not just the oil, but something I saw an article that, so Elon Musk and Trump are friends again. They had a little bit of a falling out, but apparently they had a dinner last week or a couple of weeks ago. And now Starlink, which is a Elon Musk owned company, is offering internet services to the people of Venezuela. So it is just it's a massive grift on every level. And we know that Donald Trump is a billionaire himself, works for the billionaires. And that's the thing. We don't even know exactly what you talked about, Tony, with the oil, but we probably don't even know the half of how the oligarchs are getting rich. The robber barons are getting rich off this. We probably can't even fathom how bad it really is. Like the link between oil is there, but all the other ways, like as I just said with Elon Musk and his company Starlink offering internet to Venezuela, how many millions or billions they're making from that.
I think he did the same. Didn't he do this? Didn't Elon Musk do the same with Ukraine, whereby he was going to cut off their Starlink connection so they weren't able to track drones coming in from Russia? I mean, he's used Starlink before as a weapon, I guess, against Ukraine in that instance and pro-Russia, but it's using it in this instance as an opportunity to connect people from Venezuela, because I believe their internet connections are really poor. That their social media connections in Venezuela are really poor. They don't seem to have the infrastructure that other countries seem to have. So that's a really interesting point. Hadn't thought of that before. I think one of the other things that we need to consider also is that the contradictions that sit around all of this. The Honduras president, for example, was captured, was tried for narcotics and for drug smuggling and for everything else, and yet Trump found that he needed to release him and pardon him. And how does one possibly ever equate such stupidity and hypocrisy with Trump? Like if Biden or anybody else or Obama had done anything similar to that, they would have been crucified. There would have been an opportunity for some form of inquiry by the Republicans into it. But Donald Trump, believe it or not, seems to get away with everything. I mean, Teflon Don is so true that he's now entering this period though where he's calling this policy, which is the sort of the reinventing of the Monroe policy that dates back 150 years. He's now planning to reinvent that as a Dunroe policy, a policy whereby he's trying to recapture this Western Hemisphere, as they call it, which is all of the United States plus what's south and north. He's trying to recapture all of that, and I guess on top of all of that, how are we responding as a world? What are we doing in order to? And I did a post the other day which was criticising Albanese and the Australian government for the lack of response around all of this. And I'm just curious, Nathan, what is your response to the way? Firstly, what the rest of the world can do, and secondly, the fact that they're doing nothing. Is that relevant or is that important?
Yeah. First of all, I started this stream really in an optimistic mood because I hadn't seen you for a while, Tony, and now I'm feeling very depressed by talking about all this. Your commenters are all right as well. They're talking. I do feel like part of this is that Venezuela is sort of a test for a bigger global takeover. It seems like, as some of your people are saying, Greenland, maybe Iran. Well, I don't know if they're talking about Canada at the moment, but Canada has a lot of oil too. And again, would we want this to happen to Australia? No, absolutely not. No, we wouldn't. And I've seen a lot about people talking about how another one of the motivations for this is that the US, because of what I talked about, is especially domestically with their economic situation, they're falling behind in the race to be the global superpower against China. Because China, Russia, North Korea have that alliance, and I think apparently China's not happy about them taking basically invading Venezuela. So that's the thing with the right wing messaging, is that, and this is what we see a bit with the Bondi attack and the subsequent call for the Royal Commission, is the right wing sort of latch on to an idea that no one would sort of disagree with, and then they make the left wing seem crazy by trying to argue back. And what I mean by that is, like with the anti-Semitism Royal Commission, if we don't want it to be a Royal Commission, we want it to be another kind of investigation, they'll turn back, and like what they're trying to do with Albanese is say, oh, so you don't care about anti-Semitism. What they're doing for that in Venezuela with what they're trying to get Maduro on with, which is the drug charges, they're trying to say anyone that's critical of this, oh, so you support drugs coming into the country. And so it makes it hard to message back against that, because you can, I feel like this is where, you can have two thoughts at once. You can say Maduro is a dictator and Venezuela has a problem with drugs and exporting drugs. That's not a justification to invade the country. But in terms of what the world can do, I don't know what Albanese's thinking or what his plan is. He's in a very difficult situation with Trump in particular, because Trump likes him. They had that meeting and it was perfectly fine. And I think it was a success for Albanese because we got what we needed out of it. But that's the problem with someone like Trump, who just thinks in black and white. You're either the best or the worst. Albanese, in Trump's mind, is a good guy. And so we have good relations with the US right now. And I think that was Albanese's statement. Playing it safe, Albanese, is the way he approaches things. I don't imagine I don't think Albanese will change his approach on that.
Okay, but what happens if the United States decides to take Greenland, which is...
Well, that's why I'm depressed,
Denmark.
yeah.
And how would Europe respond? Because it would be, and I think it's pretty close to the end anyway of NATO. And then, what else? What else could he choose? So there's a number of issues, I think, here. Not only what does all that mean to the world order, but also what does it mean to Europe? And would Europe make a stand? And what does that stand look like? Because this is one of NATO's countries taking an issue with another NATO country, basically. And there's, the Article 5 doesn't apply to that, I guess. But what can the Western world do? I watched a podcast today, which was talking about the notion that America, whichever way you look at it, still is the largest military, I guess, compared to China, who would be the same, if not more powerful. But even Europe, as a conglomerate, could not take on the United States. And then when we talk about taking on, what do we mean? Do we mean armed conflict with the United States? Do we mean, what other, tariff them? Do we need to make sure that all citizens that come from the United States are banned from the rest of the world? Like, to what extent can we take action against a power such as the United States? And if that's the case that we can't, what does that say about our obligation, how we've sold our soul to the United States? And we're so fearful of whatever it is that they can do that we are fetless. And as a result of that, we are also, in this world, powerless. I think they're really important questions. Anybody in the comment section, please let us know what do you think about all of those issues, and what is it that we can do? And we're entering into a new world, which is just bred with and conflated with fear about a country which is as powerful as the United States. Over to you, Nathan. I've opened it all up. Go for it. Let us know what you think.
Short answer on what the other countries or Western world as some kind of alliance against the US. I mean, that to me seems like that's what you would describe as World War III, basically, which I don't want. I don't know what other people think of that, but I think what I saw someone comment, and to be fair, this was an internet commenter, so I don't know their qualifications, but they talked about the US might be overextending themselves if they start to try and invade all these other countries like Colombia. Someone said Cuba too. I missed that. Thanks, Chatter, for that. I'll try and name names. But the military strategy, if the US try and invade too many places at once too quickly, they might not be prepared for the backlash. And even though they do have a huge military, that is a massive undertaking. Like you think about Vietnam, right? The Vietnam War, America lost, even though at that time they had a huge military as well. So, money spent on the military and amount of soldiers and weaponry and all of that doesn't always equate strategic victory. But I often think it's basically, the US is very close to a dictatorship, if not already. I mean, there is a Democrat Party who are sort of missing in action. I think the collapse will come from within, really. If I had to predict how it's actually like versus what we can do, especially Australia as a country itself being so small, I do think Albanese is probably doing the least worst option, which is just staying on Donald Trump's good side so we don't get targeted. But I think the collapse will come from within. The economy in America is already collapsing, and it isn't sustainable. It will, and that's why the billionaires are building bunkers in like New Zealand and all that. The people that have the data know that society is on its way to collapse. And you just look at the healthcare system in the US, how so many people are now unable to afford their healthcare because of the Obamacare subsidies going away. Food, there's so much food insecurity in the US, and it's getting worse. Poverty is getting worse. The wealthy and the rich, Donald Trump building his ballroom in the White House, they think they can get away with it. But if you just look at history and how dictatorships collapse, a lot of them do collapse from without, but most of them do collapse from within when the population gets fed up. And literally gets fed up in terms of not able to eat, and revolutions happen that way. I do think it'll probably, unless the Democrats take back at least the Congress or the House this year, and maybe the Senate, if it's really that bad and they just win by a landslide and start blocking a lot of this stuff, it will slide into a dictatorship that I think it could be years or decades. I don't think Trump, my prediction, I haven't said, Tony, but I don't think Trump's going to live the year. I think he's out this year in terms of his health. I don't think he's going to make it. And then whoever's after him is a massive question. But I don't think dictatorships are sustainable, because the sustainable dictatorships are the ones that at least keep the population fed and at bay. The long running dictatorships, you look at what they actually did and they delivered economically for the people. The Republicans and Trump are not delivering for their people right now economically. And so it's unsustainable. And whether that's 1, 3, 5, 10 years down the line, it will all collapse in on itself. Whether the world comes along with that, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know what else, Albin, just in terms of Australia or the West, like you speak out against Trump and then he'll he'll increase the tariffs, or he'll economically crush you. Or he'll come in and arrest you like they just did with Maduro.
Yeah. I mean, one of the key issues for me around all of this Australia's involvement is to consider what would be the consequences, I guess, of us making a choice about whether or not to continue any alliances with the United States. And, should we consider those alliances when we can't trust that very organised, that very people? I don't know if we'll ever be able to trust the United States again, Republican or Democrat. I don't think that's possible. And does it mean then that alliances need to be built with other countries, and whether China will become one of those alliances? I mean, okay, I'm going to ask this question of you, Nathan. What would happen then if this is a lot of hyperbole, but nevertheless, what would happen if we chose to kick the United States out of all of the bases that they have here, and we did away with AUKUS and stopped giving them billions of dollars for a submarine that we'll probably never receive? But if we choose to cut those alliances and start to build alliances with Indonesia, the Philippines, Japan, and South Korea, for example, could that also make us as strong a nation as we are now? In other words, do we have to be as reliant upon the United States as we have been in the past, or are there other alliances we could establish which would, I don't know, I guess, fill the gap?
Yeah, I do want to just quickly be clear on my position around the US. When we say the US, they've already started to take polling, because this only happened a couple of days ago. But most people in the US are against this as well. So when we say the US, like our alliance with the US, most people in the US are on our side with this too, and are disgusted at what's happening. There is the Donald Trump cult that will just go with him off a cliff, obviously. And they're in power right now, so we have to keep that in mind. My thing is, like, all these alliances you're talking about, like, I think cutting off AUKUS and divesting from the US and all that is definitely a way that we can do it, because that's what I say as well, like being sort of more I'm not like I'm a lefty, but I'm not like a socialist or anything. I'm a capitalist. I do really believe in the power of, like, if we limit the money flow into the US, and that's already happening through tourism. Their tourism industry is collapsing as well, because no one wants to go there at the moment. So that's definitely a way to do it. My question would be, can those new alliances happen fast enough? Like, if my theory is that the US can't sustain this, and someone commented JD Vance would be worse. I know that commenter. I'm not saying it's going to be a good thing if Trump goes. I'm not necessarily wishing for him to go, because whoever replaces him will be younger and probably have just the same ideas. So I'm not saying Donald Trump not living through the year is going to solve all these problems. But my worry would be, can we build those alliances up quick enough than the US collapsing? Because at some point, unless they just become a blatant dictatorship, the Democrats will get back in, and like Labor have to do with the Liberal National Coalition, well, they'll start undoing some of this damage. But I just don't know. Like, I'm not, I'm a psychologist. I don't know the ramifications of us just completely canceling everything with the US and trying to find a new alliance. The time frame for that. Will our economy be able to sustain that while we do that transition? I don't know your thoughts on that, Tony. That would be my hesitation. I wouldn't be against it, but I'd just worry, would we be able to actually do it? Would be my worry, without harming ourselves.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And I just posted someone's comment up here. Try to close Pine Gap and USA military bases here, and watch how fast US warships surround Australia. And I think that is a relevant point. If we make a decision to contravene what the United States want, or push back against policies that they've implemented here in Australia, to what extent would they push back against us? I think that's a really important thought to consider, because are they only our friend as long as we do the things they want us to do? Is our friendship reliant upon our compliance to whatever it is that they want? And I think that if that is the case, then they're not a friend, because it means that there's no grey area in the middle to help us negotiate other positions with them. They're just, I just can't help but get this thought out of my head, though, Nathan, that they're not a good partner.
No, they're not. It's transactional, and I don't know where I hear a lot of quotes that come in, so they come from somewhere, and people can look them up if they want to. But I heard that Australia, we're like America's little cousin, and even someone commented multi-optioned on your channel, on your stream, Tony. They said like no one's mentioned the US is far and away the largest foreign investor in Australia, and talking about the military bases and stuff too. That is my point that I'm trying to make. Is we're so intertwined. It's going to be a messy divorce that I don't know if we are even ready for, if our economy would collapse if we even tried to. And that is where it is scary, because all Albanese would need to do is tick Trump off enough for us to start feeling it economically as well. So is it like playing the safe, just keeping our heads down while this country is going on this binge of invading people, and just hope that it collapses in on itself? That's not the nicest option, but I really don't know what we can do as Australia and what that alliance, as you said. I don't think we really want to align with China and Russia and North Korea. I don't know if there's appetite for that. So yeah, we are quite stuck. This is this is going really well in terms of making me feel better.
Oh yeah, well, my show isn't about making people feel better.
Oh, that's right. That's true. Yeah,
it is about actually canvassing the issues that make us feel like shit. And understand what those issues are, so that we can rectify them. I mean, this is about problem solving. As a psychologist, that to understand how to resolve an issue, you need to understand what the issue is in the first place.
100%. Yeah. So and sometimes the problem, and that's what people do, is with their own personal lives, is sometimes there isn't a good option. There's only you got to mitigate the damage as best as you can. And I think Australia probably is getting into that position where we really don't have that much leverage. Because as you said, even if we withdraw from AUKUS and withdraw from if we close the US military bases, would they even care? If it just annoys Trump and then he goes after us? It's that cost benefit analysis of what is our next move that's going to be the best for our country.
Yeah. Yep. I just got to put up a post here from Sheldon, one of my favorite clowns. And Sheldon says, you do realise that you have been gaslit about Trump's polling numbers. Hold on, Sheldon. In this instance, there's one person being gaslit, and it isn't us, I can assure you. Of the last 8 years. Well, hold on. Are you talking about 8 years that he hasn't even been president for 8 years? That 8 years is.
I think he means so. Yeah, I know what you're saying, but yeah.
It always 6-point swing in Trump's favor. I don't know which polls you're watching, but I suggest you switch off from Fox News straight away, because they are just full. I mean, it is state media. Venezuelan people are cheering, and the left is crying. There are certainly some people, and I think that raises an interesting point, which I'm happy to canvass, is that there are certainly people who are celebrating the fact that Maduro has been captured and taken away. And there are certainly some people who are not, because they realise that it is simply contravening international law.
I couldn't see where that comment was on your stream, Tony, if that's a separate thing. But I just commented there, like, I just want to know from Sheldon, are you anti or pro-war? Because Trump ran on, as you said, non-interventionist, which means no new wars, no invading countries. We stay out of other people's business. And now they've invaded. So have you changed your opinion recently, Sheldon, or have you always been pro-war and you voted for Trump even though he was anti-war? Or have you just bought into what Trump's saying right now and changed your mind just because Trump told you to.
Oh, he's posted again. He says, Tony, do your research. I have.
Well, send us a link, Sheldon, because I saw with the Venezuelan people cheering, that's actually AI slop. A lot of those videos, one that Elon Musk retweeted, is just AI videos of Venezuelans cheering. Now, in any issue, there's always going to be like 2 or 3% that are always going to, you're never going to get an issue that's 100% in the country. So there's probably a few Venezuelans that are okay with it. But are you okay with the US invading other countries? Because Trump said explicitly he would not do that, and now he's doing it. So yeah, who's mind controlled?
And where does Sheldon? Perhaps you could tell us where you're from if you've got enough courage and guts to do that. And if you're probably in Moscow. Australia, what's that?
Probably Moscow. Russian bot.
Yeah. Well, so let us know where you're from, and perhaps we could then talk to you about what it'd be like if the same thing happened where you're from, even if it's Australia, you know. And you know, if you are an Australian, Sheldon, why are you so pro-Trump in the first place? I just wouldn't understand that, unless, of course, you're One Nation. Someone said, Sheldon, get out of here.
I love Pauline. No, well, I noticed Sheldon's last name is Sheldon Walls, because that's, you know, Tim Walz, who just withdrew from the governorship in Minnesota, who ran with Kamala Harris. So is Sheldon Walz like Tim Walz's right-wing cousin or something?
Yeah. Could be. About the polling numbers in the last 3 elections. Born and raised in Australia. Oh, well, there's an embarrassment for us. And I guess Sheldon's a One Nation supporter as well, I would suspect.
I love Pauline. Not as a politician. I just
Pauline's entertaining, to say the least. You know,
she's
for someone who has really no political clout, Pauline is at least entertaining. And now she's got the entertainer of all times, Baby Joyce, sitting alongside her and sitting on her knee, parroting everything that she says, because Barnaby's also a clown. So there's still lots. Some people are putting lots. Thanks everybody for posting. You're doing a fabulous job. We've had 83 people online so far, and we really appreciate all of your input. So we've dealt with Sheldon. Maybe Sheldon will not reappear.
Sheldon,
or she does. That's fine.
Sheldon can always come on my show. I would, as I said, I'll talk to anyone for an hour. I call it my everyday Aussies. If Sheldon wants to show me the research, I will. I'm not joking. I will reach out to me on my channel, and we can actually talk for an hour, and you can talk about research that I don't know. And that's not a joke. So they can access the Rightist Leftist. I'll link to my channel in the chat if you want to follow it. Yeah.
Could you drop that into the chat?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just drop that in the chat there.
Absolutely.
And I concur with Nathan that I have said this many, many times. If you have a specific point of view that is counter to my own, I'm more than happy to have you on my channel, like Nathan and I do right now, have a conversation with you, perhaps you, me, and Nathan, talk, or Avery sometimes on a Thursday, talk about the issues that matter to you. Let's have a conversation. Let's find out why you think the way that you think, because that's what interests me. And I think that Nathan is a psychologist.
That's my whole channel.
Sort of stuff
that's my whole
that
channel.
Interests you as well. You know, and if you want to battle it out with a social worker and a psychologist, that's fine. But best of luck. But feel free. Contact us. You can contact me through my. People often contact me through my email. So
my last message on Sheldon, I won't tell the whole story, but Sheldon, I was in the US during the 2016 election, and I didn't think Hillary was going to win. So you can assume things about people, but let's chat and we can actually have a real conversation if you would like. They said they thought we think Hillary was going to win. I
wasn't convinced that Harris was going to win either, to be honest.
Yeah. So let's talk Sheldon legit. Yeah.
If Sheldon is American first, doesn't matter where he was born. Okay, fair enough. It's still you something or other. I agree with you. Can agree to disagree as long as it's not nasty and you get my approval, even if I disagree with you. That's James. James, I don't know what you actually meant by that, but if you wanted to contact us, I will put in my chat down here my for those people that haven't got access to it. The email address so that anybody can contact me. None of this is. Oh, I misspelled it. None of this is a secret. So I've just popped it in for those people that wish to email me, and we can make a connection and we can have a conversation. It could be a three-way conversation with Nathan, you and myself, or it could be a separate conversation with me, or you could contact Nathan on his channel.
Yeah, just put mine into. Yeah, I put my email into.
Right, good. Okay, so we can have. So we're all, like, because this whole point of this exercise, both Nathan and my channels, are about having lively discussions about a range of issues that matter to everybody, and we don't have to agree about any of them. We can disagree until our little heart's content, and we can still have that conversation. Now, if there's someone, I just wanted to I was thinking of a way to segue to a Royal Commission, but I just can't find. I can't find the appropriate segue.
We'll just do a hard transition.
Yeah, I just think we just do a shift, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Royal Commission, whether or not it should. So I'll start with before I say my bit, Nathan. How about you just airing your view on all of that, and what do you think about the potential of Royal Commission versus the inquiry, the Richardson inquiry? What do you think?
Yeah, really. My short answer is I'm still undecided. Like I think it's going to turn out. What I think is going to happen is I think Albanese will cave and do the Royal Commission. I've just posted in your chat for everyone, and in my chat, the Liberal Party has released. This was since we last spoke, Tony, but this was late December. They released their 25-point terms of reference for the Royal Commission. In fairness, look, again, we both go after the Liberal National Coalition quite hard. The actual points, if you read them, are quite reasonable. Like nothing in there. It's very wide ranging. It covers a lot of areas. So your audience, everyone, I'd encourage you to read it yourselves.
Which one are you talking about? You're talking about the inquiry, Richardson inquiry, or the
the Royal Commission. So the Liberal
Party.
Yeah. So the Liberal Party's proposal for the Royal Commission. So it's from they have 25 terms of reference from A to Y, and some of those have sub points within them. And as I said, I've read through it, and none of it's really that unreasonable to me. I think what it's going to come down to is the timeframes. I think with the Richardson inquiry, or what Albanese and Labor's, what they're going to try and do, and I think this is what Labor's, one of the things they're most criticised about, is that they can be, seen as like policy wonks or very procedural, and the way the Liberals are trying to spin that is that he doesn't care. It's again what they're not saying. They're kind of saying they're not directly saying it, but they're saying Albanese is an anti-Semite or doesn't support Jews. Like you're not going to Frydenberg. I think if he gets back in, he's going to be the Liberal leader because he's leading the conversation, even though he's not even elected yet. And they're really pushing for that Royal Commission. And I think it's that political test to see if they can control the messaging, because obviously, as we just talked about with Trump and Venezuela, the Republicans and the right wing in the US can control the messaging. I think this is their underlying. Like I'm sure, as in Josh Frydenberg is Jewish himself, and I think he genuinely wants this Royal Commission. But I think there is a bit of cynicism too that this part of this is to see if they can push Albanese into their messaging. And for me, it's about what will really reduce anti-Semitism. I think either of the reviews would be good. The Royal Commission will take longer and be more expensive and be more wide-ranging. So I would like to see how it goes, what they end up doing. I think Albanese might cave on it.
Yes, Sheldon, thanks for your comment. I'll put it up because it's on this topic, and Sheldon's just a mate of mine. What can I say?
The Teals, I will say, in addition to Sheldon talking about sports people, the Teals have now called for it as well. The Teals are in areas that have high Jewish populations, especially Allegra Spender is a Teal, and that covers Bondi Beach. So they're on board for the Royal Commission. So it's domino effect. I think it's going to happen. It's just about, will that actually solve the problem, or is it just going to be like a 2 or 3 year commission that eventually might get released in the next term? Yeah.
So Sheldon, I hate to focus on poor old Sheldon, but Dorney Fraser and Thorpe, love your language, want a Royal Commission, lots of laugh. Now you're in trouble. Well, I do need to say.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. Sorry, Tony.
Yeah.
I just want to ask who Sheldon voted for, Just a side note, Sheldon, can you tell us who you voted for this election? I'd be really interested to know. Sorry, continue.
Because I actually don't give a shit about what a swimming star and a tennis and two swimming stars in this case, or a tennis champion like Margaret Court, who's just anti-gay. She's a whole into hating LGBTQI plus people. So I don't care what any of those people say. I think, and I don't know what you think about this, but I am at this point, and I'm quite critical of Albo many things, but I quite like the idea that he hasn't allowed himself. I know where you sit at the moment, and I can understand that too, because I've kind of been provocative between the two. I don't know which way I want to go, but I'm actually in favour of seeing how the Richardson inquiry works out, because there may be enough information in that to tell us what the primary issues are. And as you raised earlier, maybe you could talk about this. Do you think an inquiry is that because the Richardson inquiry is supposed to finish in April. The Royal Commission will go on for years. Which one of those two, if any of them, and it may not be either, which one of those two is going to bring about better understandings and a decrease, I guess, in anti-Semitism?
Yeah, that's the only question I actually care about. What will actually deliver results?
Precisely.
Yeah, I think the Liberals, look, again, I are critical of them, but I always try and at least see from their point of view. Their point is that we haven't talked about too is there's going to be a New South Wales state-based inquiry as well, and their point about that is that won't be able to investigate agencies like ASIO and other agencies that could have prevented, because I've done my video on ASIO that I'd really like to know what their reason that for one of the attackers that was being on their radar in 2019 and got to the point I believe they either interviewed or were following them. I don't want to name them because they don't deserve the notoriety. But what caused them to stop following them? And if it's something that comes down to like a lack of resources, or because if you get on ASIO's radar for expressing, because I believe it was through an online channel that they're expressing these opinions. As I said, as a psychologist, people have those deep-seated beliefs. People rarely change those deep-seated beliefs. If you believe in jihad, or even like with Jewish people who have their religious beliefs, you don't really give those up readily. You don't really. So I'd like to know what ASIO why they decided not to follow one of them, and not to say that if they had kept following them, that this would have prevented the outcome. But I'm very in favor of figuring out what happened in the chain of events, and if Albanese can justify why that Richardson review would be able to get to the bottom of all that, then I think that's reasonable and that can be done faster. But there is a bit of hypocrisy with the Liberal National Coalition being so against the no vote for the Voice, establishing the Voice, because it was going to cost a lot and it was going to drag on.
Excellent point.
And now they're talking about this Royal Commission that is going to cost a lot more than this other review. I would just like to see, in seriousness, to reduce anti-Semitism, I would like to see them try and collaborate with Albanese rather than trying to subtly suggest that he's anti-Semitic. Because, again, this is the same as the US. The Liberal National Coalition, I feel, have given up on winning on the economic message. I think they've just given up on the cost of living. Like point. In Victoria, we're about to have an election. What's their infrastructure plan? The Victorian state government, the Labor government, has delivered tunnels, bridges, roads, removing sky rails, so much infrastructure. I haven't seen the Liberal Party suggest anything. And I know that's the state, but even the federal government, they've got no ideas. They're not going to fix the cost of living. And that's what I'm in a working class suburb. I could tell you the people on my street probably do not care about this issue. Maybe some of them care about anti-Semitism, but it's probably not even in the top 10 of their issues that they care about. And they're not going to bring that to the election. And this is where it's like a messaging war. The Frydenberg and the Liberals have sort of staked their political hopes on this, that they can bring down Albanese. But as I said, Albanese's not a hateable guy, and they're trying to sort of make people hate Albanese, and it's not working. Even my parents, who are more on the conservative side, don't hate Albanese. As I said, like Daniel Andrews had the hate factor that people could just like really get outraged at him. But even people who don't like Labor, Albanese just doesn't bring that that feeling out in people, and I think that's what they're trying to do, and it's not really working in
I reckon,
my view.
no, I think that's a great point. I think the thing that Albo's got going for him the most is that he is conciliatory. Like I think Albo tends to want to find the middle ground for people in particular, and he is prepared to attack in the same way that the Liberal Nationals and the One Nation are these days. And I think people are absolutely tired of that form of politics. The Frydenberg, the Wilson, these sort of dudes' way of attacking each other and other politicians is something that just doesn't rest well with Australians. We see it in American politics, and it seems to be the way to go. But in Australia, I think we're just a different breed, and we don't favourably look upon those forms of attack. And as a result, I think Albo comes out looking better than the others.
Yeah, and it's 100%. This is what happens in the election, and it happened in this year, 2025's federal election. The Teals, the independents increased. They did lose, I think they lost a seat in Victoria, and I think one in New South Wales, but they gained more because the independents were seen as collaborating with the government when the policy was good. And the Greens lost seats. They lost 3 seats because they were seen as obstructing the Labor's housing policy, and they held up what could have been. And in my view too, it wasn't enough. I think the Labor Party shortchanged, and that's my whole criticism. They don't do enough, but you don't throw the whole thing out just because you're not getting what you want.
Yeah.
And I think and people are sick of it. Yeah, people are sick of it.
One of the best examples of this, funnily enough, is The Voice. I think that the Labor Party, and we're not just a Labor, there were others that were on the Yes campaign, but basically they didn't fight hard enough against the onslaught that was coming from the No campaign, and I think that brought about the loss of the vote. But the reality is that in times like this, around anti-Semitism and what happened at Bondi, is a time for calmness, not for hate. And that, and there was one post here I did want to bring up from Wayne, and it is this one. Why hasn't the coalition waited until the New South Wales police have finished their investigation before calling a royal commission? And do you think it's fair enough to sort of, and thanks for that, Wayne, do you think it's fair enough to wait and see what the New South Wales Royal Commission presents in the first place, and whether that provides us with any of the sort of solutions or answers to the questions, I guess? And I haven't looked at what is what is the terms of reference for the New South Wales Royal Commission. I don't know if you have, Nathan, at all. Have you looked at that one?
No, and I don't think they call it a Royal Commission when it's just the state, but it's very. I think it's. I've seen like the broad overview. The only thing that they can't do is the federal. They can't investigate like ASIO and stuff like that. They can only investigate state.
No, but they can. Yeah. They can order people to appear.
Oh, sure. Yeah, for sure.
Which is what a Royal Commission does.
Yeah.
But also the other question for me around, and Wayne, thanks for that question, because I think that's that statement. I think it's a very important one, because the other issue for me is will not only will the answers be provided, but will it be satisfying enough for certain people in the Jewish community in New South Wales to have some answers to their issues? Will it satisfy them?
Yeah, I think that's where you've got a commenter, Danielle, who said, any 15 people dead, so it's not scoring points. I think this is what you and I, Tony, do. And if this person's just joined your channel now and doesn't know, 2 things can be true at once. A tragedy can happen, and we can mourn that tragedy and want to get answers. But a political party can also exploit that tragedy for their own gain. That 2 things can happen at the same time. It's not unheard of that happens, and I think that's what's happening now. And what we would like, I think you agree, Tony. Well, I know I'll just speak for myself. Is we want to get to the bottom of that and stamp out anti-Semitism from our society. And this sort of debate around procedural things about how do we do that. If Labor truly believe that their review is the way to go, they need to be more forceful. And that's my whole thing. I've just done an hour-long video on Labor in my channel, and one of my big criticisms of them is, yes, they bow down to those right-wing talking points, and they cower, and they don't fight back and say what they believe is right and why they believe it's right, and talk to the Australian people like they're adults. And I know people say, well, if they act like children, they should be spoken to like children. But most of Australians do care about the society that we live in our communities. And we want to know what the best response is going to be. And if Albanese believes that, he needs to just come out and be clear, because he did like sort of a Christmas message, and it was kind of he sort of referenced some of the struggles, but it didn't hit the right tone for me. And I think that's where he's really being criticized, is the Jewish community are in mourning now, and they're suffering and they're struggling, and they're feeling really unsafe and scared. And I think, yes, Josh Frydenberg and that are exploiting that. But Albanese does have a bit of responsibility as the Prime Minister to do all that he can to reassure the Australian people that Labor are on top of this, and they're going to do everything that they can. And if that's their review is what they believe that is, they need to be much more. They've got a YouTube channel, Tony. They haven't posted for 8 months since the election. I looked up their YouTube channel and showed the latest video that Albanese had posted 8 months ago. Where are the Labor Party on their messaging? Go on Sky News. Go on all of these channels, go on the podcast, get all your politicians out there talking about it, because the Australian people, I've heard someone say, I had a Labor commenter say, that is their biggest, they're a full-on Labor supporter, and they even agreed with me that Labor have all these great achievements and no one knows about them because the right-wing propaganda machine of Sky News and that, they pump out videos every 3 minutes. And we've got you, Tony, pumping out videos, and I'm starting to pump out videos. But Labor have this huge opportunity to be doing counter messaging about why they believe what they believe and why this is going to stamp out anti-Semitism. And it's an emotional issue, and Albanese needs to meet the moment on that. And I don't think he is. I think he cares. I don't think he's an anti-Semite. I think that messaging is just trying to attack him, and it's not working because people don't hate him.
But it's still,
but
I think it's
to
still
win
about, yeah. It still is about conflating what the IDF are doing in Gaza, and suggesting that if you're anti-IDF or anti-Israel in some form or another, that somehow you're anti-Semitic. And I don't know how we ever get across the message that that's just not the case. Why can't we just say hate speech of any kind is just wrong? And I'd say that to Daniela, who's online right at the moment. Hate speech against Muslim people, Daniela, is wrong. And hate speech against anybody is wrong. And condemn it at all its levels rather than allow it to permeate through society as it has done. But it brings me back to the original question, Nathan, is does any of this that we've talked about, except the first part of this, which has been about Trump and stuff, but does any of this actually help us to better deal with hate speech in our community, do you think? Or do you think that, that somehow, and my biggest fear is that Islamophobia will increase in this country because there'll be those people who just are going to hate all Muslims regardless, even though there's this, I've got to talk about this. There's this statistics people keep raising, like Douglas Murray, for example, the clown of all times. And Douglas will say, well, 2 or 3% of Muslim people are extremists, and because 2-3%, so because there's so many in the population, like there's many more Muslims in Australia than there are Jewish people. Like there's 4% Muslims and 0.4% Jewish. So because there are so many of those percentages, who knows where that percentage comes from? There are more likely to be extremists within that group than there are not, and so that is a threat. I get so distressed that when I think about, I don't know where you're at with regard to this, when I think about people spreading that form of disinformation that we know has no foundation whatsoever, because we do keep forgetting in Australia, and I have to keep reminding Australians this fact, Nathan, is that to our north, our closest neighbour, apart from Papua New Guinea, happens to be Indonesia, which is the largest Muslim population in the world. And one would think that if they're going to say that there's this 3% or whatever that's extremist amongst the Muslims, out of 180 million people or whatever it is in Indonesia, that a 3% of that Muslim community would be enough to form a friggin' army to bombard and take over Australia. You know, like the maths just don't add up. But the maths are there to try and convince us that the extremism threat is so massive that we need to all become fearful of it and ban all Muslims from practicing their religion or even existing, just as Israel has done against the Palestinian people in Gaza. That's my speech. What do you think? Let's have some sensible reflection on all of that. Thanks, Nate.
Yeah, I'll see if I can achieve that. No, absolutely, Tony. Like that's the point, is that if we really want to deal with the issue, like the two shooters, you know, ASIO had one of them on their radar. The idea of like statistically summing up a group and whether those statistics are even accurate or how they've even measured them, it's like you don't look at, let's say you're walking down the street and you see a person that's clearly a Muslim. It's not like a spin the wheel of if they're a terrorist or not. You have to, that's not how these agencies work to try and stop these attacks. They look at people's behavior through many different channels, online being the main one, if they can track people's activity and things like that, or neighbors can report them and things like that. I think what it really comes down to is that the hate, the focus on the anti-Semitism or focusing on that outrage is turning, it's again, you know, that focusing on the cultural issue and turning people against each other, against you know, the billionaires and the people that are profiting off that outrage on Sky News and things like that. They're exploiting a real tragedy, because I think even the people that don't like Albanese and the Labor government are at least trying to do something. You know, he hasn't said we're not doing anything about this. They just have a different approach. And I think what people are getting frustrated by is it's a little ironic from the Liberal National Party coalition to talk about hate when that seems to be part of their policy platform, because they clearly hate working people. They want to strip workers of their rights every which way. The robo-debt scandal, they want to step on the necks of poor Aussies. I wish they showed as much outrage at that, even though that was a problem that they created. So there's a huge hypocrisy that they're trying to lecture us on hate speech and keeping people safe when they have really not done anything for that.
Well, and we know,
yeah.
Sorry, Nathan. We know that anti-Semitism is a thing that's been around for centuries. It's not new. It was present during the Frydenberg era. It was present during Abbott, Howard. You know, it was present. It has been there, as horrible as it is. The only thing that has brought it to the surface is the IDF's bombing of Gaza and people standing up for Palestine, and the Australian government saying they recognise Palestine as a state. That's the difference. It's not complicated. You don't have to be a rocket scientist or a political scientist to understand this. This is where it's come from. And so it's been simmering underground. It's like, as I've said many, many times, it's no different from the racism that surfaced during the Voice campaign. Because we start talking about a subject, an issue, such as, you know, giving Indigenous people a voice to Parliament, then we suddenly, and including the Constitution and other stuff, it then becomes a race problem, because simmering underneath, filtering away, has been racism, and in this country it just comes to the surface. The same with anti-Semitism, always been there. So how do you dispense with and get rid of hate speech if it's always been there? Is it because now it's becoming more dominant because people are expressing it more openly than what they have in the past, because social media allows people to do that, whereas they just didn't have it previously? Like, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, again, just trying to be solution focused and hopeful. My cynical view is that I've been watching a lot of documentaries on the Liberal Party. The ABC has so many, and they release them after elections, both when they've won and lost. And I think Susan Lee, her initial response to all this was that we are going to work with the Albanese government. and that gave me hope at that point where as you're saying, Tony, is that social media, Sky News and a lot of those channels, they profit from that outrage and that hatred. So they're incentivized to increase that in the Australian population by releasing articles that are inflammatory like that. And I sort of had some hope that Susan Lee, who maybe I'm very naive and idiotic on this, that I still think that she is trying to be a moderate and trying to work with Albanese where she can. But she's been overrun by, I think they've gone in the back room and gone, Albanese's had too many wins. We need to make him look bad, and we need to win back, because it doesn't. The whole thing same with Trump in the US. If you cooperate with the party in power, and then they actually, let's say, you don't really say solve anti-Semitism, but we address it, and anti-Semitic, the way they measure it, through anti-Semitic hate speech and crimes go down. Well, that's this Danielle person who's going off on us right now in the comments. We want anti-Semitism to go down too, and Labor's the party in power, and they're trying to do something about it. So just relentlessly attacking them, trying to block them at every step to try and actually address it. And then if you look at any kind of right-wing channel, you should look at some of the hate speech, Tony, and some of the local my local politicians, I'm not going to name him, but is awful. Like, you talk about hate speech from the Liberal National Coalition. I don't believe for a second that they're interested in reducing hate speech. So yeah, I'm both hopeful and not hopeful, I guess. That I just hope Albanese can get the message, and if it turns out that the Royal Commission is what the Australian people want, if it's going that way, then I guess they're going to have to do it. But as you said, Tony, like, I think they should wait for at least the police investigations. Let's see how, like, the time frame of the state-based inquiry in New South Wales, because Chris Minns is very popular, especially with the Jewish community. So it's not just a Labor-Liberal divide in the Jewish community. They just want to see people step up and try and solve the problem. And if Albanese's perception is that he's not doing enough, then he needs to look at that and say, all right, this is what we're going to do and why.
But it brings us back, and it seems like we're going cyclically here, but
yeah.
it brings us back to, I think, the key issue, which, what is enough? For a problem that's been here for centuries.
So it's like the Royal Commission is going to uncover stuff that we already know, which is increasing people's interactions with others. And I think that has been made worse with this online world, where a lot of us are spending more time at home and spending more time on the computer, and getting stuck in our own bubble.
Yeah, I think we dropped out for a bit there. I just need to say that.
Okay.
But we're back on for some reason. I don't know why that dropped out. Because I think we reached our hour limit. I don't know. We don't have an hour limit. We reached an hour and then it dropped out and then re-emerged. So, look, Nathan, thanks for being with me. We've covered so much territory. I don't know what we're going to talk about next week if you're around, but I'm sure there'll be something. Maybe there'll be Greenland.
Yeah. Well, we'll see who's invaded next. Maybe we'll be doing this. Maybe we'll be the United States Australia will be the 57th state by next week, maybe. So
that's a really good point. Stay online,
yeah.
mate.
I'll have my little Trump statue behind me.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe I should put one as my background.
Yeah, all hail. Yeah,
exactly.
Emperor Trump.
Stay tuned, mate. Don't go away. All right, thanks everybody for being with me. It's been a great opportunity to sit down and have these conversations with you about all things that matter to you and to me. And if you subscribe to Nathan's page, fantastic. Really want to kick his numbers up so he can get some real numbers, so that he can therefore monetize his site. And I want to thank everybody for subscribing to my channel. I've now hit 8,000, which was my goal by the end of this month. So already reached, and by the end of March, I hope to get up to 10,000 subscribers. So please help me. And I'd say that help me in my retirement. It's a really great idea, and I certainly do appreciate it. And thanks for everybody's support. For those of you that comment, for those of you that send me emails, I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate being able to respond to as many emails. I can't respond. On one of my posts, I had 450 comments. It was really difficult to respond to everyone, but I try and pick out a few that I can respond to. I really do appreciate it. I do need to say, though, that if you put a post up that is hateful towards me or to anybody else, I will block you. It's as simple as that. I will not have that stuff on my YouTube channel. So please, and I haven't had to block anybody yet, but please, I can sense for some people it's about to happen. So please don't do that. I really appreciate it. And in the meantime, I just want to say, look after yourselves. Take care of you and the people that you love around you, because they are very important. Take care.